Dear Trinity friends, how I wish we could be together right now in Hubbardston, sharing word, sharing the meal, but we can't. And even though we're separated physically, we can be here together as time at the right time that works for you. These are strange times, and I don't know how many times I've heard that in the last couple of days, but it's true. And so we're experimenting with a couple of options, and we hope for your feedback. So even though we can't be together today, it's worth reflecting on the gospel reading for today because it's a great story. It has all the characters you could ever ask for. There are the self-righteous, powerful people trying to push people around. There are neighbors, just kind of rubbernecking, trying to see what's going on. There are those who want to turn a blind eye, those who try not to get involved, even as parents try to pass the buck. But isn't it interesting that the first words out of the disciples' mouths were, "Who sinned, this man or his parents?" And then Jesus heals the blind man and disappears. Everyone's left in a kind of a dither trying to figure it all out. The characters are asking the wrong question, and they refused over and over to believe the man who had been blind. They keep asking how he was healed, and eventually the religious leaders turn against him. In this strange time of uncertainty, it might be tempting to ask, who sinned? Who do we get to blame? It's an easy question to ask. Fortunately, I haven't heard too many people trying to blame anyone for this COVID-19 virus. I do hear dissatisfaction and blame when it comes to the responses. But so far, I haven't heard anyone blaming China because they or their ancestors sinned. At least what I've been hearing is more of a we're all in this together kind of thing. But I've been wondering a couple of things. I've wondered when all of the kind-heartedness will end. There are lots of stories of people doing good things, being good neighbors, wonderful stories. And I wonder how long all of that will last. I wonder how long all the words of encouragement and spiritual advice on Facebook and in emails will last. I wonder what we'll learn and what we'll refuse to see about ourselves and our world, being blind as that man had been. I wonder how long it will take for the magnitude of all of this to sink in. I know it hasn't for me. But the gospel for today helps with some of this. Even though the people repeatedly refused to listen to the blind man, he was certain. He said, "One thing I know, I was blind and now I see." No long-winded theological statements, only what he knew. Throughout these next days and weeks, will we discover things that we have been blind to? Maybe you already have. We certainly have our blind areas, each of us. And times of crisis can be good for opening one's eyes. Can we use this Lenten time of physical distancing to be more open to God in our lives? It might be easier with so many restrictions in place. There are simply fewer options on how to use our time. Or it might be near impossible. Did you notice that Jesus returned to the man who had been blind after he had been kicked out of the synagogue? After the people tried to answer the questions of how did this happen, how could it be, Jesus was the only one who came to the man after he was kicked out of the synagogue. And then the man who had been blind was able to see Jesus, to see who he was. and he came to believe. The blind man, the man who had been blind, only says what he knows is true. Jesus, the light of the world, is a mystery, no doubt. But there's another important detail in this story. While the whole village was confused, running around, trying to answer their how question, the blind man was quietly abandoned by everyone except Jesus. Jesus returned to him after he had been kicked out. He came to finish the story. In the days ahead, we might feel abandoned. In a sense, we here have been kicked out of the synagogue. We're not in Hoverston Chapel right now. We might be filled with doubts and worries. Those doubts and worries, maybe they haven't surfaced yet. But there is no doubt that Jesus will return to us again. In fact, Jesus never even leaves, never abandons us ever. It just might feel that way. But we have that promise that no matter what we're feeling, what we're seeing, what we're hearing, we will never be abandoned. We'll be never left alone. We have the promise of healing and light and life. We have the promise that Jesus wants us to see him, to believe, and will never stop making it possible for that. May we all take advantage of that promise, because it is God's gift to us, here and now, and all the time, forever. May this time of being apart be a time when we also can have our eyes opened to see God and God in our midst in new ways, ways we may have never even imagined. May God's peace be with you. May you be well and healthy. Peace, Pastor Jane.